The thunderclap split the night open at exactly 3:17 a.m., jolting me upright in a bed that still smelled faintly of fresh paint and optimism. At first, I thought the storm itself had dragged me awake, but then I heard the slower, steadier sound beneath the chaos. Drip, drip, drip. My pulse raced to match its rhythm before I even flicked on the lamp. The light revealed what the darkness had been hiding. A dark patch spread like an ink blot across the ceiling, blooming wider as each droplet fell in perfect time. It landed squarely on my grandmother's quilt, a patchwork of bright fabrics she had stitched together by hand decades earlier, each square carrying a memory of Sunday dinners and long summers. Now the quilt absorbed betrayal with every drop. I scrambled from the bed, feet hitting the hardwood, and grabbed the nearest container I could find, a metal mixing bowl from the kitchen. The first ping of water against its surface felt like a warning. Lightning flickered across the room, and for one frozen second, I saw 3 leaks instead of one. They formed a constellation above my bed, as if the house itself had decided to chart my downfall in stars of water. The storm outside roared, rain drumming against the roof like fists against a locked door demanding entry. The ceiling obliged. I moved quickly, raiding my cabinets for every pot, pan, and bowl, spreading them across the house like sentinels. Each one began to collect its own rhythm of betrayal. When a new sound rose from the hallway, water slapping hardwood, I followed it in dread. More dark spots bled into the ceiling in the hallway, the bathroom, the spare room. 5, 8, 12. It was as if the house was dissolving around me, each drop undoing a thread of the life I had built. The words slipped from my mouth before I could stop it. The basement. I descended the stairs 2 at a time, clutching the oak railing my brother Samuel had promised was solid enough to outlast us all. The basement light clicked on, and what it revealed stole the breath from my chest. Water seeped through thin cracks in the foundation walls, converging into rivulets that crossed the concrete floor. A growing puddle lapped at the water heater, and the breaker box glistened dangerously close to dampness. I stood on the same spot where 3 months ago Samuel had wrapped his arm around my shoulder and whispered, "This is a once-in-a-lifetime deal, sis. You'd be crazy to pass it up." His voice echoed now, mockery layered into memory. I had wanted this house with a hunger born of 10 years of sacrifice. A decade of living in a cramped studio apartment where my bed touched 3 walls of reusing plastic containers until the lettering faded, of weekends filled with overtime shifts, while my friends posted photos from beaches and brunches. I had saved $68,000, penny by penny, convinced myself that hard work and patience would deliver security. When I signed the papers, Samuel had been beaming beside me, the proud older brother guiding his little sister into her first home. Our mother Martha had praised him for being a provider, the man who carried the family's ambition on his back. "Your brother is a gift," she told me more than once, her voice smooth as silk. "You're blessed to have him looking out for you." That night, as water claimed room after room, I realized what kind of blessing I had inherited. I sat at the kitchen table with the folder Samuel had insisted on handling for me, the inspection reports, the disclosures, the certifications. He told me not to worry about the details. He was the expert. My fingers trembled as I spread the papers across the table, droplets of rain tapping the windows like a countdown. The roof certificate claimed 15 more years of life expectancy. The foundation assessment declared no sign of compromise. The electrical system was listed as updated and safe. Yet the names on the signatures didn't match any companies I could find. The inspector's license number bore an uncanny resemblance to the roof certifier's business number, like one had been copied from the other with a slight alteration. Every document had the same handwriting disguised by different letterheads. My heart sank lower with each page, At dawn, I called Samuel. He answered with a voice too cheerful for the hour. Mom told me you had some leaks, sis. Old houses settle. Nothing to panic about. I'll swing by with my caulk gun later. The basement is flooding, Samuel. I said, my voice steady, though my hands shook. The foundation is cracked. The roof is failing everywhere. He laughed hollow and sharp. All houses have little problems. Remember you got this place for a steal? I'm changing the locks tomorrow. What? Why would you? I ended the call without another word. Minutes later, my phone lit up with my mother's name. Her voice crackled through the line velvet covering granite. Celia Andrews, how dare you talk to your brother that way? After everything he did to help you, this is how you show gratitude. The house is falling apart, Mama, I whispered. Did you know? Her silence stretched long and heavy. You're overreacting. It's just a little water. The call ended, but the distance it created yawned wider than any crack in the foundation. I sat alone until the doorbell rang. Kelly, my best friend since college, stood on the porch with 2 coffees in hand and a burly man in a tool belt beside her. This is Mike, she said gently. He owes me a favor. Mike whistled low as he inspected the house container by container, leak by leak. In the basement, he knelt by a patched wall and scraped at it with his pocket knife. The concrete crumbled away, revealing a crack that ran deeper and darker. I've seen flips like this before, he muttered. They covered it up just enough to pass inspection. His words cut sharper than any thunderclap. Your family did this to you, Kelly asked softly. Samuel was my agent, I whispered. He brought in the inspector, he arranged everything. I put down my life savings. Mike stood and wiped dust from his knees. Bad news, Celia. This isn't just storm damage. These are chronic issues someone deliberately hid. To fix this house, you're looking at $120,000 easy. My knees gave way and I sank onto a chair. 10 years of sacrifice gone in 3 months. My chest tightened until each breath scraped raw. Kelly wrapped her arm around me. This isn't right. Your own family took advantage of you. Rain battered the windows, but inside something shifted. Shock was hardening into something colder, more dangerous. I need to know exactly what they did, I said. And for the first time since that storm woke me, my voice did not shake. Mike's phone buzzed as we stood in the basement, the light flickering across water stains that looked like a map of betrayal. He stepped onto the porch to answer, while I sat at the kitchen table, papers scattered before me like broken promises. Kelly leaned over my shoulder, her sharp eyes catching details I had missed. Look at this, she said, tapping the electrical repair certificate. Same handwriting as the roof cert, just different company name. I stared at the signature. It wasn't just sloppy, it was careless, as if whoever faked it assumed no one would ever look closely. And why would they? Family doesn't read fine print. Family trusts. Mike returned a few minutes later, his face hardened. I called a buddy at the county office. This place was bought 8 months ago by Andrews Investments, LLC. He paused, studying my reaction. That's your brother's company, isn't it? The world tilted. My lips moved before sound came out. Yes, Samuel owns it. Mike nodded grimly. He pulled permits for cosmetic work, cabinets, flooring, paint. Nothing structural. My buddy says 2 previous sales fell through during inspections. Real inspections, not this garbage. He gestured toward the stack of falsified papers. I felt my chest cave in, breath scraping against ribs. They couldn't sell it to anyone else, I whispered. So they sold it to me. The realization settled like concrete in my stomach. My family hadn't helped me step into my dream. They had offloaded their problem onto me, draining my savings to patch their financial wounds. The knock at the door startled me. A woman in a neat pantsuit introduced herself as James Morgan's assistant. "Mr. Morgan is a real estate attorney," she explained. "Kelly reached out this morning. He has an opening at 3. He believes you may have grounds for fraudulent misrepresentation." For the first time in 24 hours, hope glimmered. That afternoon, James's office smelled of leather and old paper. He listened patiently as Mike described the patched concrete, the crumbling walls, the forged signatures. He flipped through the inspection report, shaking his head. "Fraudulent misrepresentation, failure to disclose, and potentially license fraud," he said. "We'll need solid documentation." I placed the photos and documents on his desk, each one like a weapon I didn't yet know how to wield. James's eyes sharpened with interest. "This isn't just negligence, it's deliberate. And your brother's real estate license means he had a fiduciary duty to put your interests above his own. Instead, he exploited your trust." The words scraped raw, but they carried a strange comfort. Someone else saw it too. I wasn't crazy. As I left the office, my phone buzzed. "A text from Samuel's mom is devastated by your accusations. We put everything on the line to help you, and this is how you repay us. We're $80,000 in debt from trying to renovate that place. We just wanted to recoup our investment." Kelly leaned over my shoulder, reading aloud. "They're scared." "They should be," I replied, tucking the phone away. The next morning, I drove across town to meet the previous owner, Mr. Prescott, a retired engineer with careful silver hair and wary eyes. He invited me in, and after some hesitation, returned with a thick folder. I kept copies of everything he said, voice heavy. Force of habit from 40 years in corporate America. "Your brother told me not to discuss the property with anyone, but..." He slid the folder toward me. "I think you need to see this." Inside were insurance denial letters, repair estimates, and email exchanges. My breath caught at a highlighted paragraph: "Coverage declined due to pre-existing foundation compromise and roof deterioration." Dated 14 months earlier. He knew I asked, though I already felt the answer in my bones. Mr. Prescott nodded. "I showed him all of this before selling. He said he had the resources to fix it. I assumed he would." He adjusted his glasses, eyes troubled. "I never thought he'd flip it onto family." I photographed every page until my phone's storage groaned. When I reached the email section, one name seared my memory: Jeff Turner, the so-called inspector. He wasn't just anyone. He was Samuel's college roommate. By the time I left, my hands shook not from fear, but from clarity. They all knew. James's voice crackled with restrained excitement when I called. "This is exactly what we needed, Celia. This isn't just unethical, it's criminal. We'll use these documents to pursue damages and file with the Real Estate Commission." That evening, I texted my parents, "Coffee at Magnolia Cafe. 10 a.m., important family discussion." The public setting was deliberate. When they arrived, my father, William, looked uncomfortable, his button-down worn soft with age. My mother, Martha, was immaculate, her pearl earrings catching the light, her mouth pinched in disapproval. Samuel trailed behind, phone in hand, confidence forced. "This better be important," Martha said as she slid into her chair. "We have an appointment at 11:30. I opened the folder and pushed the insurance denial across the table. I spoke to the previous owner. He told me everything. Samuel's face drained of color, his hands trembling so badly coffee spilled across the table. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, voice cracking. "You knew about the foundation issues and the roof damage before you sold it to me. You concealed it. You committed fraud." My voice was low, steady. "We just wanted to help you, sweetheart," Martha said quickly, her eyes darting. "Everyone has to start somewhere. With property values, stop." I slid another page forward, an email from Samuel to Jeff Turner, requesting a favorable report despite deficiencies. A couple at the next table looked over, sensing the storm at our corner. Samuel leaned in, hissing. Look, maybe there were some oversights, but minor. I cut him off, laying photos of my flooded basement beside the falsified report that claimed no evidence of water penetration. My entire savings, Samuel. 10 years of sacrifice. My father's eyes fixed on the documents, his face paling. I didn't know it was this bad, he murmured. William, don't say another word. Martha snapped her nails, digging into his sleeve. For the first time in my life, I saw my father deliberately remove her hand. No, Martha. This isn't right. Samuel tried to recover, pasting on the smile that had closed countless deals. Celia, let's talk privately. I'm sure we can work something out. That chance ended when you committed fraud, I said, snapping the folder shut. James Morgan will be contacting you today. The name of the well-known attorney knocked the smile off his face. My mother sputtered. You wouldn't do this to your own family. I stood, gathering my papers. You did this to me first. That night, William knocked on the door of my temporary apartment. His shoulders sagged, his eyes rimmed red. Can I see the rest of the damage? He asked quietly. We walked through the house together. He saw the mold creeping along bathroom walls, the widening cracks, the buckling floors. His silence spoke more than words. Finally, he whispered, I thought they were just helping you. I didn't know. His apology broke something inside me, not pain this time, but the tight knot of doubt that had been choking me since the first leak appeared. Then, tell the truth, I said. That's how you can help me now. He nodded, voice rough. I will. The following days became a blur of preparation. Mike produced a full inspection report with photographs and repair estimates. Kelly organized documents, building a timeline of lies. Neighbors agreed to give statements about Samuel's promises during the showing. Piece by piece, a case file formed as sharp and undeniable as the cracks in my basement floor. One evening, as we sat around James's conference table, my father slid a folder across to me. I found these in Samuel's office, notes he made about the property before you bought it. Inside were handwritten pages detailing the foundation cracks, water intrusion, and urgent roof replacement needed. At the bottom, Samuel had underlined, "Do not disclose." James whistled low. Direct evidence of intent. This is gold. The hurt that had once consumed me was hardening into something else, something colder, steadier. For the first time, I wasn't just the victim scrambling with pots and pans under leaks. I was preparing for battle. The courthouse rose like a fortress in the early morning light, its limestone steps slick from overnight rain. I adjusted my navy blazer, gripping the leather portfolio that carried every piece of evidence we had gathered: inspection reports, insurance denials forged, certificates, photographs of damage. Each page felt like a brick in a wall we had built strong enough to stand against my own blood. James walked beside me with his usual calm. Kelly squeezed my arm for courage, and my father followed close behind, his face lined with regret, but his stance firm. Inside, the air buzzed with whispers. Familiar faces dotted the benches, neighbors from the block, colleagues from Samuel's brokerage, even Mrs. Winters from across the street. When Samuel and our mother entered with their attorney, the room shifted. Martha wore her grief like jewelry, dabbing her eyes with tissues that never quite smudged her makeup. Samuel, tall and practiced, leaned toward his attorney with a mask of concern, whispering in tones meant to seem casual. All rise, the bailiff announced. Judge Eleanor Harmon entered, her expression unreadable behind wire-rimmed glasses. We took our seats, and Samuel's attorney began. Your Honor, this case represents an unfortunate misunderstanding between siblings, he said smoothly, his silver hair gleaming under the lights. My client, a respected real estate professional with 15 years of experience, helped his sister purchase her first home. Now she accuses him of fraud because of routine maintenance issues. He displayed documents on the screen disclosure forms bearing my initials repair certificates stamped with official-looking seals, photos of the house from closing day. Any home has minor pre-existing conditions, he continued. These fall under standard disclosure exemptions. The words dripped like honey, but each one stung. Martha nodded along her eyes wide with maternal injury, as if she were the true victim here. Then James rose. The room shifted again, the quiet authority of his voice cutting through every pretense. Your Honor, what we have here is not a misunderstanding. It is a calculated fraud. The defense presents documents that appear legitimate. We will prove every one of them was falsified or manipulated to conceal known structural defects. He began with photographs of my flooded basement beside the inspection report claiming no evidence of water penetration. The contrast was damning. Miss Andrews trusted her brother, who had a legal obligation to protect her interests, James said. Instead, he exploited that trust to unload a property rejected by 3 previous buyers during inspection. Objection, Samuel's attorney interjected. Unsubstantiated claim. Not unsubstantiated, James replied, placing county transaction records on the projector. 3 terminated contracts within 4 months each during inspection periods. Documented. Objection overruled, Judge Harmon said, her eyes narrowing at the records. The morning unfolded like a meticulous autopsy of deceit. A certified inspector testified about cosmetic patches designed to hide structural cracks. In 27 years, these are among the most blatant concealment techniques I've seen, he said, pointing to photos of freshly painted concrete. This wasn't negligence. This was deliberate. Samuel's attorney tried to suggest alternative explanations, but the inspector's calm certainty cut through. These issues predate the sale by years. No storm could cause this kind of damage overnight. When my father took the stand, Martha stiffened her eyes, flashing. William's voice was steady as he recounted finding Samuel's repair estimates weeks before the sale. Over $90,000 in needed work, he said. Samuel told me it was old paperwork repairs already completed. I believed him. Did you later discover those repairs had not been completed? James asked. Yes. My father's voice broke. I saw the damage with my own eyes. Martha's nails dug into her purse, but William didn't waver. The previous owner, Mr. Prescott, testified next, his weathered hands clutching the folder he had given me. I told Mr. Andrews about the foundation and roof issues. That's why I accepted such a low offer. He assured me he would fix it properly. I never thought he'd sell it to someone else in this condition, much less his sister. His words rang with quiet outrage. Then came the final blow. The original inspector, whose signature appeared on my inspection report, took the stand. He studied the document with a frown. This is not my signature. I never inspected this property. I was recovering from bypass surgery during the dates listed here, and the license number is off by 1 digit. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Even Judge Harmon leaned forward. Are you stating your signature was forged without question, Your Honor? Samuel's composure cracked. His leg bounced violently under the table, his jaw tight, as he scribbled frantic notes. Martha's tissue trembled in her hand, but no tears fell. By mid-afternoon, James had dismantled their defense piece by piece. Samuel's attorney resorted to suggesting clerical errors and miscommunications, but each excuse sounded thinner, weaker. Judge Harmon removed her glasses, rubbing the bridge of her nose, before delivering her decision. This court finds clear and convincing evidence of deliberate fraudulent concealment, she said, her voice firm. Mr. Andrews abused his license and his familial relationship to commit real estate fraud. The words hit like thunder, not shocking, but confirming what I had known since the first drop hit my grandmother's quilt. The court awards judgment to the plaintiff in the amount of $200,000, Judge Harmon continued. This covers repair costs, diminished property value, and punitive damages. Furthermore, I order a lien against Mrs. Martha Andrews' condominium to secure payment. This matter will also be referred to the district attorney and the State Real Estate Commission. The gavel struck. The sound echoed like freedom. As we left the courtroom, sunlight spilled across the courthouse steps. Kelly wrapped me in a fierce hug. "You did it," she whispered. "You stood up when it mattered most." James shook my hand. "This is why I practice law," he said simply. My father hovered, close eyes wet. "I'm so sorry, Celia. I should have stopped this sooner." "You came through when it counted," I said, surprised at the steadiness of my voice. Behind us, Samuel and Martha emerged with their attorney faces ashen. Samuel's gaze slid past mine, full of fury he no longer had the power to wield. Martha clutched his arm, her composure unraveling under the weight of consequence. I inhaled deeply, the autumn air crisp in my lungs. For the first time since that stormy night, I felt strong. The woman who once scrambled for bowls under leaks had been replaced by someone they hadn't expected, a woman who refused to break. But the fight wasn't over. Back at my rental apartment, the settlement check sat on the counter like a trophy. But it felt more like ashes than victory. I couldn't keep the house. Too many memories had soaked into the walls with the rain. We listed it openly, full disclosure of every issue. Ironically, offers came quickly. Honesty, it seemed, had a market. James became my permanent advisor. The district attorney investigated Samuel's practices. More of his clients surfaced, sharing similar stories of corner cutting and concealment. His brokerage terminated him, and the commission suspended his license. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow. Family wasn't supposed to treat you this way, but something new began to take shape in the emptiness. My father and I volunteered together with the Real Estate Transparency Initiative, teaching first-time buyers how to protect themselves. We created checklists, hosted workshops, and watched young families avoid traps like mine. Each success stitched something back together inside me. One evening, as rain tapped against the window of my new apartment, my phone buzzed. It was an email from my coworker, Diane House, emergency help. Her brother-in-law, also an agent, was pushing her into a suspiciously cheap house. I recognized every red flag in her message. Months earlier, I would have sent sympathy. Now I replied with resources, inspector recommendations, and James's contact information. Trust is earned even from family. Verify everything. The cycle was breaking. 6 months passed before I could bring myself to stand inside another house, with hope instead of dread. The day I signed the papers for my new home, the inspector spent nearly 4 hours crawling through crawl spaces, shining lights into corners, tapping beams with practiced hands. He pointed out the gutters that needed cleaning, the bathroom caulking that should be resealed within a year. Then he smiled and said the words that still soothe me in the middle of storms. "The foundation is rock solid." That night, rain fell again, steady and insistent, but I didn't wake in terror. I lay in bed, listening to the rhythm against strong windows, and felt something I hadn't in months: peace. My grandmother's quilt was stretched across the bed, its colors bright once more, not blotched with betrayal. This house wasn't perfect, but it was honest. My father became a steady presence, showing up with groceries or helping patch a squeaky door. He had joined me at the Real Estate Transparency Initiative, where we spent Saturdays warning young families about red flags in contracts. I watched him regain a kind of dignity that had slipped during all those years of silence beside my mother. He admitted he had ignored too much for too long, convinced himself Samuel's ambition was something noble. Now, he chose truth, and it was healing us both. Mom and Samuel withdrew from family gatherings. Holidays passed with empty chairs and unanswered invitations. Once Martha left me a voicemail in her velvet-lined tone, asking if we couldn't put this unpleasantness behind us. I saved the message, but never responded. Forgiveness may come someday, but reconciliation requires trust, and trust must be earned. The settlement money sat in my account like a reminder enough to repair the wreck they had sold me, but I chose to sell instead. Too many ghosts lived in those walls. The irony was sharp once I disclosed every defect. Honestly, buyers lined up willing to take the house as it was. Honesty sold what deceit could not. James remained in my life not just as an attorney, but as a mentor. He told me often, "What you did took courage most people don't find until it's too late." He was right. Standing against strangers is one thing, standing against family is another. It requires a different kind of backbone, one forged in betrayal, but tempered in truth. One rainy afternoon, I received a text from my coworker Diane. We walked away from the house. Inspector said the foundation was compromised. "Thank you for saving us." I smiled, realizing my battle had already rippled outward. What had broken me was becoming a shield for others. Kelly organized a housewarming at my new place, filling the living room with laughter, the air scented with roasted chicken and spiced cider. She raised her glass high. "To new beginnings," she said. Around me stood people who had shown up when it mattered. Friends who had held me while I cried, a father who had finally chosen truth, neighbors who had testified without fear. Family, it turned out, was not always defined by blood. As the evening waned, I stood at the window, watching rain streak down glass that did not leak, listening to laughter that did not falter. For the first time in months, I felt rooted again. I thought about the woman I had been the night of that storm, scrambling to catch water in bowls, convinced my life's work had dissolved in a single night. That woman had been fragile, yes, but she had also been brave. Brave enough to dig into lies, brave enough to walk into court, brave enough to say no to a family that demanded silence. Sometimes the hardest battles are not against enemies, but against the people who should have protected you. And yet those battles reveal something essential, that blood is not the same as loyalty, and loyalty is not the same as love. Real family is chosen, proven, and tested by truth. As I closed the curtains and rejoined my guests, I carried that lesson like armor. I had lost a brother and a mother, but I had gained clarity, strength, and a new foundation, one built not on deception, but on truth. And that is worth more than any house. If this story touched you, remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment with your thoughts. Your engagement helps us bring more powerful stories like this to life, and your voice might just help someone else facing the same battle. End.